What is going on, cyberspace? Welcome to the HyperPixel podcast. I am Michael K, and let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room here. There's another set of eyeballs looking back at you if you are watching this on the YouTubles, and those eyeballs belong to none other than Zorain. What's going on, Zorain?
Yes, it is a true fact of nature that I am indeed. I mean, look, I'm wearing gray. I'm an elephant.
Yes.
Let's just, it's facts, true facts. Can't deny it. I have to accept reality. I can't argue with reality.
Right.
That would be unwise.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I'm an elephant.
Mm-hmm. So,
what's up, man? How's it going?
Man, you know, just living the dream, doing the TikToks and all that stuff, and
yeah.
Playing with things that play video games and not actually playing video games. So, you know.
Yeah. Same, brother. I just realized something.
What's up?
I have my cellular mobilular device. There it is. Okay. I didn't know where it went, and I knew that I did not turn off the ringer. And
that will straight up get you most of the time.
Interrupted if I had not done that.
Yes. That'd be quite a thing.
We're good.
Sweet. So what's been going on in Sector X? What you been up to?
Actually, interestingly, and this is a wonderful turn of events to me. I've been reading a lot more lately.
Okay.
Yeah. I read frequently, but I don't frequently sit down and just look at a book and read. So I read a lot, obviously on the cyber webs, as most people do, right? But I guess the difference being that I don't just like read blog articles and stuff. I actually read like long form posts a lot on websites and whatnot, which I think some people do that. Some people don't. You know, some people that's not their bag of coffee, so they want other tea bags in their hot water.
Right.
But I've actually been sitting down away from screens, looking at physical paper books and reading.
Nice.
It's been a good experience. And in fact, so I've been reading actually 3 different books. But I finally started The Cave in the Light, which is a book that you and your wonderful wife gave me, I think actually a few years ago for Christmas at this point. So
very cool.
I'm actually getting started on that. And it is, so far, it's everything that I expected it to be. So it's pretty cool.
Well, excellent. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Good stuff. How about you, man? What you have been up to?
Oh man, I feel like I have been just like doing so much stuff and like not playing as much over the past few weeks. So that's kind of been my story. The big thing that I've been working on is I've mentioned this before, but I've kind of been in the process of incorporating some CRT stuff into my gaming setup here in the room, and to do that, I have this, and this is so bogus, but I have spent all this time and energy and money getting the best possible quality video signal output out of all my consoles, and you know, upscaled and all this stuff, and so now I have this device that is actually converting all that stuff back down to S-video / composite or whatever, to go back into these older CRTs that don't have, you know, RGB or component or anything like that. So I've been working on kind of tinkering with that, trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to make that happen. So this makes me so mad, Zorain. So I got this thing, what you call it, an RF modulator that It accepts S-video, and the little translucent green CRT that I have only has RF on it. So, for whatever reason,
like the worst possible connection.
Yeah,
for
and
video.
It was made in like 2001-ish, I think, something like that. So I'm shocked that it doesn't have composite. There's actually another version of it that does have composite. So I have no idea why this one doesn't. But regardless, anyway, so I got this RF modulator at Goodwill, freaking brand new, like in the box, or like in the, not the box, that plastic stuff, that you have to like cut off.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
freaking like if you screw up, you're going to slice a finger off with this stuff. It's so
Literally will lose a limb trying to
yes,
open
exactly.
Yeah.
So I got this. I was like, surely this is good, right? Like it's going to work, right? Because it's freaking brand new, and it just like it goes in and out and drops signal all over the place.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, I have an older one that I used when I was a kid that it has composite. It doesn't have S-video on it, so it's fine. It'll work. But I was pretty sad because I've been sitting on that for like months.
For real,
man, this is gonna be great.
That's ridiculous.
But anyway, so I played Virtua Cop 2 last night for literally the first time in, I don't know, probably 16 or 17 years or something like that.
That's wild.
So
you know what you need to do now? Your course of action now is crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get a PVM. I mean, there's no other option.
That is true.
Literally. No other option.
That is quite accurate. Whenever that does happen, I plan on putting it right here. But I just don't know when that's going to happen.
Well, see, now you need two because you need one for your main gaming area, and then you need one for there.
Yeah, right. You know, Zarain, you speak words of wisdom into my ear holes.
I mean, it's not an option. It's not a want. It's a need.
Right.
It's a need.
So something that I plan on doing until I can get, multiple PV, like some crazy person, or totally sane person. I don't know, however you want to look at it.
Wow.
So I have a CRT. It's probably like, I think it's like 25, 27 inches, something like that.
Oh yeah.
It's one
big one.
Yeah, one from my childhood that has S-video. So I was going to set that up in here until I can get a PVM. But
there you go.
So it'll just kind of be a placeholder until then.
Yeah.
So
you can design the space around it until you get the real
exactly. Deal. You've read my brains.
Nice. That's awesome, dude. Like, as far as like all that stuff goes with the real retro things, I have yet to set up my PS2 my station over here, my North America PS2, my Japanese PS2, and my PS3. I'm still planning on doing that soon.
Mm-hmm.
Might be another week or two out before I get that set up. But once I get that set up and I figure out what I'm doing here, then I might start giving some thought cycles because I would really like to set up like a Super Nintendo, an NES, maybe a Genesis even. Like I feel like it's getting close to that time. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
Like the only thing I'm really missing for all of that is, I mean, I have carts. I don't have as many carts as I did growing up because well, I'm like, this is not the time to talk about some of that. But some of it is just, I just don't really know what happened to them. You know, I'm sure some that I let friends borrow and never got back. You know how that goes. But I need to pick up like 4 EverDrives.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got my N64 over here too that I bought at Games Trading Post.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've hooked it up one time and used it, and it's like it's so sad. Yeah, so like that too. So I want an EverDrive for the NES. I want one for the Super Nintendo. I want one for the N64, and I want one for Genesis.
Yeah, EverDrives are awesome. Like and really, it just kind of depends on what features you want with it. Like you can actually save a lot of money if you don't want.
No, don't talk to me about
full
that.
shebang. You know,
I'm getting the high end one. I already know. Right.
I can't get over the. They renamed it. I forgot what it's called. It's the Super Nintendo one, and you can load other soundtracks onto it, like arranged, orchestrated soundtracks, like CD quality soundtracks that people have made, and like somehow it syncs up with the game.
That's nuts, dude.
Yeah,
it's so cool. It's so cool. That creates a new level of replayability that's just like unparalleled. So that's super sweet. I think, isn't it called like, it's like FX?
Oh, that's right, FX Pro. I think maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I desperately need an NES one, like for real. And I
Yeah.
almost desperately need that one too.
Right. Yeah, the NES one, I've actually been looking at those a lot over the past few months. They're about like 180
Yeah,
ish, but they have like save state support.
which is nuts.
Yeah. Like
And it's so good. That's so good if I ever start streaming. That's the big
uh-huh.
thing for me is like I don't want to like cheese out save states, but it's like if I spend 2 hours streaming on a really hard NES games, which let's be real, there are a lot of really hard NES games.
Right.
I don't want to have to go do that again the next stream.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a real quality of life thing.
And like freaking this stuff has just gotten insane. Like the Genesis one has like an FPGA implementation of Sega CD hardware on it, so you can play
What?
Sega CD games without an actual Sega CD.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So you just
Bro, you're telling me I could play Night Trap on my Genesis?
you can, in fact.
That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Bro, we're living in the future.
Right. What a time to be alive.
But and one of the big reasons that I want especially the NES one is because I want to play the Final Fantasy randomizer on hardware.
Yeah, that would be
Right,
awesome.
Dude, and all other kinds of randomizers, Legend of Zelda randomizer, like all of those things. Let's go. I want to do it.
Yes, sir.
You know? It would be freaking awesome.
Yes.
And that's something I just need to do generally is like I need to go back because I haven't done this, and like there's a really good randomizer for Resident Evil HD remaster on PC even, and like we need to talk about randomizers at some point, like as maybe a podcast topic, because like that's like a whole nother world. It's wild.
Yeah, that and like ROM hacks and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's all the same sort of realm where it's like breathing like extreme new life into games that have been around forever, and it's like, and it's so wild too, because like if for somebody who doesn't know anything about randomizers, and like let's say you jumped into like a stream where somebody's playing like Legend of Zelda randomizer and they go into like the first dungeon and it looks like the 8th dungeon, you're like, wait a second, what?
Right.
What just happened here? If you don't know that's like people are capable of doing that, it's like really funny. The thing about and I know a lot of others probably have these features too. I'm just not as familiar with them as I am the Final Fantasy randomizer. This is for clarity, Final Fantasy 1 on the NES. The Final Fantasy randomizer is so awesome. Did I ever show you the website where you do it?
I think briefly, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's so many options.
Yeah.
Like it like literally can make it basically a completely different game. Like there's like options where it's like you have to find the party, like in like newer role playing, like Japanese role playing games, but really Japanese role playing games where like you start with just one person and then you go through some of the game and then you find a person and then you have two people in your party and you find another person's. There's a setting to make it like that where you have to get a certain amount of gold and basically buy the second and third, fourth party members.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. And then there's like handicap flags where it's like you can only have 3 party members, where the fourth one, it keeps the fourth one dead all the time, no matter what, even if you give them like healing items. So it's like you have to play the game with 3.
Yeah.
It's just, I think you can actually do that with any slot, so you can force yourself to only play the game with one character. Like XP multiplier, both positive and negative multipliers, all kinds of stuff. It's just, it's so cool. Like I could just imagine myself spending days and days and days playing this game with different configurations. It's amazing what kind of new life that breathes into the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially like if you're like a total pro at that game, like it changes everything. It's like something totally new.
Well, that's like how I actually came across or even thought of to look at any kind of randomizer for Final Fantasy. There's a streamer, his name's Gyre. As GYRE _ on Twitch. Yeah, if anybody out there is interested in Final Fantasy just generally, but specifically Final Fantasy on the NES, and he actually does some other things too, but primarily Final Fantasy on the NES randomizer. Talk about pro. This guy has things like the randomization tables memorized, and so he knows what's going on in the code.
That's insane.
Yeah. This is a guy who like speed runs a vanilla like with no references and could tell you like what basically he's so aware of everything going on in the game that he could probably tell you what attack enemies are going to use based on all the randomization tables and stuff, and about how much damage it's going to do.
Yeah.
And so he uses that to optimize things like buying items and all that kind of stuff. It's like, what? I mean, and yeah, the speedrun actually does lots and lots of tile manipulation where like you manipulate battles to not happen or to happen at certain points and places. So you make them happen when you need to level real quick, and you make the battles spawn with easier enemies that give more XP, and then you make it where certain parts of the game, huge swaths of the game, you don't go into any battles and it looks so ridiculous when you do it too, because you'll go into a dungeon and then you'll go, opposite where you need to go to beat the dungeon, and then you'll go like a floor down and then walk around in some random pattern and then go back up, and then you go through the whole dungeon, don't even fight an enemy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're just manipulating the quote unquote randomization in the game. It's so funny. It's so funny. But this guy has this all in his head. It's
That's
like
wild.
And you can watch him do it live. Like there's one of the older SGDQs or AGDQs where he does it live. It's like a 4-hour speed run or whatever. And the whole time he's doing it, he and this other guy are just talking about it. And they don't ever stop to look at notes or anything. It's just they just go.
That's crazy. It's like that. What am I thinking of? That Mario World one where it looks like you're just seemingly doing a bunch of random stuff, and then you get
the
into
wrong
that
warp, the world record wrong warp thing,
where it like teleports you to the very end of the game.
Yeah, it's like a 30-second speed run.
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
That. Yeah,
it's just so wild to see.
Yeah,
it's like
you jump on certain
done.
turtles at the beginning. You pick up one of the shells. You turn backwards, backwards a bit, and you kick it up in the air, and then you do something. Then you grab it when it comes back down, and then it's like you jump on an enemy, and, and then the game freezes and glitches out, and then there's the credits.
Right. Oh man,
it's so good. Oh, and that's the same sort of thing. Is like you have to. In that one, the guy's memorizing like memory locations and what got put into certain memory locations, because that's what you do. Is the way that the game saves information into these memory locations. You do certain actions to put specific things in those memory locations, and then you do weird things to shift it so that basically you're putting in one memory location something, and then another one you're putting into a pointer to that one, but then you do something to evacuate that memory so the pointer goes nowhere, and when the pointer goes nowhere, the game doesn't know what to do, and so it resets to the next thing that it knows, and it goes and it doesn't know anything because the list is empty, so it just goes through everything until it gets to the last one, and it knows as an emergency thing, just do the last one, and the last thing's the credits.
It's so wild.
Ridiculous. Yeah,
that is like that's like God tier. Like I don't even that's
like finding it's what's crazy. It's like you had to examine the code, not only understand what the code's doing, but look at ways that you can create basically bugs in the code. What they're doing is creating a real-time bug effectively. It's so nuts. It's so awesome.
Nuts.
Because and then not only that, it had to have been lucky enough for the people who programmed the game to have that emergency measure to play the last room, basically, or whatever in the game. Because otherwise, if it didn't, it would try to go and it would go to the index beyond the last one, and there would be nothing there, and the game would just like freeze. Nothing would happen, and so it's like you couldn't even do a wrong warp. So there's so many things that had to line up to actually make that possible. It's so funny.
Yeah,
so funny.
Crazy.
I love speedrunning, by the way, if you can't tell.
Man, I need to. I want to play some more Mega Man X4 and kind of get back into that. That was fun. I'll add that to my list of things to do.
It has a million things on it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, do I want to continue to play this game over and over and over again and master it, or do I want to play a bunch of different games? So I don't know.
I think I've. Maybe de facto or something, I've kind of made that choice in my life. Oh, well, say love you.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I can't play something new every once in a while.
Right. So, Zerain.
Yes.
Once again, on this day of the week, we are discussing retro tech here. Yes. So I don't know exactly where to start with this, because we basically have just a list of a bunch of random stuff that we did not talk about last time.
Yeah.
So if you have something that you would like to talk about first, please feel free to just throw it out there.
Well, so we talked a good bit about like audio technology as far as like music and stuff. I think I mean we mentioned like MP3 players and all that, I think.
Yeah,
Which was a huge revolution. I mean, even CDs was a huge revolution when it comes to audio stuff. Because, and I think I mentioned this last time, but for me, CDs were such a huge thing because I was already pretty deep into music before I got a CD player or any CDs. And one of the biggest problems that I had with that was, rewinding tapes because almost all of the music I listened to was on cassette tape. Some was on vinyl, but that was very little, and that was like collection my mother had.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, I don't know if we talked about it directly, but there were all kinds of like different cassette players, right? I mean, obviously you think about way back when you had huge boom boxes and stuff. And even before that, you had like console stereo systems that had like, record player. And then eventually they started getting like 8-track cassette tapes, which I guess we could talk about 8 tracks, but I think it's a little bit before you were in my time.
Yeah. Confirmed.
But then cassette tapes, compact cassette tapes come in, and those console stereo systems start having tape players. And that was a big revolution because like even 8-track tapes were pretty big. Have you ever messed with any 8 tracks much at all?
Not really.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's called an 8-track for a reason. It's got 8 tracks. So like an 8-track player was really interesting. You would like push the tape in and had like a plastic case around it. And it would lock in place. And then like the eject button would like kind of eject it like a toaster kind of, and you had some in cars. So it was like straight in, but all the ones that I ever saw on like console stereo systems were like you plug straight down into it. And that was good because that was so much more compact than like a vinyl record, right? Part about a vinyl record too is you need stability to play it, because if it's all shaking and stuff, well, that's not going to work. So there was never record players in cars, as far as I know. Maybe
that reminds me that there was like this bit in the AVGN movie where he has like a record player in the van and it's just like totally unusable.
Oh, yeah. So that was the big thing, was that like 8 tracks were the first time that you could bring your own music into a vehicle, because they had like decks that you could install into a car to play 8 tracks in a car. And eventually some cars came with 8-track players. But they were still pretty big. Like, and there was again, there may have been some like prototypes or some things I'm not aware of, but there certainly wasn't pervasive that there was like a personal player for 8 tracks where like you had like headphones on. Because again, at the time, even headphones were huge. They were like bigger than this even, there was no such thing as earbuds or like, street style headphones, or even just like, over the ear band headphones, smaller ones. However, in the 80s, we got a change. I think it was the 80s when these first came out. We moved from the bigger 8-track cassettes, because those are cassettes with tape inside of them, to smaller compact cassettes, which is when people say cassette tapes, this is what they think of now. And those are so much smaller that, and technology got so advanced that we could make small personal players like that. And as far as I know, this may not be the true case, because you know how popular things aren't usually the first. I look at like VHS, right? VHS was the second technology. The first one's Betamax. Look at, Blu-ray, right? The first technology was HD DVD, not Blu-ray. But more or less, the first one that really caught on were Walkmans, Sony Walkmans, which is a series of personal cassette players. Most people probably know these, but if you were born after 2000, you may have never seen or heard of a Sony Walkman. You may have heard it, the Discman, like the CD player, but the Walkman was the cassette player. And that, as far as I know, and I could be totally wrong about this, but my understanding is that's where like the band smaller style headphones comes from too, is because the Walkmans shipped with those. So you were able to actually listen to music without, and it was battery powered. So you could listen to music without having to be tethered to anything. You could go out and walk around and listen to music. Yeah. And that was a revolution, like for real.
Without carrying a freaking boombox on your shoulders.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and that's why, a lot of people don't understand why, like you see all these like old movies from like the 80s and you hear people talk about people carrying boomboxes around. Well, that's why, because if you wanted to listen to music, that's the only way you could listen to music portably, and you could do it. So that was cool, but you couldn't do it personally. Some boomboxes ended up having headphone ports, and some people carried around big honking headphones with boomboxes too. So it's like people did what people had to do, but having a small, compact form of media, like audio media like that, and a small compact player with personal monitoring capabilities was a huge revolution. And I don't think many people don't appreciate that these days, especially because if you're born into a world where MP3 players are passe, pretty much, it's like I don't know how to conceptualize the world for somebody who grew up like that, but it was a big deal to be able to take a tape with you and listen to it anywhere.
Yeah, it's this interesting thing, and I feel like the same thing has kind of happened like in gaming with like ROMs and like emulators, and I mean, you know, like with audio, like Spotify and Tidal and, you know, all that stuff. It's like you just have unlimited access to literally any and everything you could possibly play or listen to or whatever, and like the magic is kind of gone at that point, you know, versus like I have my freaking Michael Bolton cassette here that I'm going to wear out on my trip to Kroger this evening, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and that's the thing is, and this is something that I struggle with even. This is, I'm kind of shifting the conversation a little bit, but I think it's relevant in context for sure. It's so hard for me now to sit down and square away time to discover new artists. And this is a problem that's caused by multiple things. One, you can find just about any artist you want to find these days. If you are going and looking for something, you can find that thing if you look hard enough. It used to not be like that. It used to be you could be aware of something but still never find a CD even, but especially even farther back, a cassette of a particular band or something. So there's you can find it. So that makes it not an adventure in the way that it used to be. Not only that, but there's so many of all of this stuff. It's like, what kind of filter do you even use? Because I'm sure you felt this way, at least back in the day. And I'm sure kids these days don't understand. Kids these days, I'm on the front porch with my rocking chair, and I don't mean this as a denigrating thing. I think they're very lucky in this as well, but they are missing the whole thing of finding a unique band. Not to say that the band was actually unique necessarily back in like the late 80s, early 90s, but when you found a band, it was unlikely that there was going to be, especially if you're getting into stuff that's like outside of mainstream. Like if you're getting to like punk or metal or really hard rock or just like not radio friendly stuff, it was unlikely that you were going to find a band. This is a different podcast, but anyway, it was unlikely that you were going to find a band than you could find like a dozen other bands that are just like them. Like you just couldn't do it. You would find a band like, man, I really like this band. I wish there were other bands like this, but oh well, there's no other bands like this. Even though there may have been, there was just literally no way to find out. One, to know that that's the case, and two, to find them and find music recordings from them. Recording was so much more expensive back then that so few people did it. That's why so many of the recordings sound like crap. That's where true cult black metal guys get the leg up, is because they prefer that sound. It's like, well, you got lots of content. Man. But anyway, so I think it's just like a different thing these days, the discovery of music. So I want to pin that. We should have a podcast where we talk a little more details about that, because I think that that's a very interesting topic in and of itself.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I had a couple different Walkmans, and then I had all kinds of. I mean, Sony wasn't the only one that made, by far, wasn't the only brand that made personal cassette, listening devices. So I had a lot of them. I went through a lot of them. Koss was another big brand, KOSS.
I don't know. I can't remember which one I had. I know that we had a Walkman. I think it was my sister's. I had like a yellow one, and I can't remember. I don't think it was actually a Walkman. I think it was something else.
Yeah.
But when I was making my video game music mixtapes, I wore that freaking thing out on road trips.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Good stuff. So yeah. What about you? What other technologies did you want to discuss?
So I have some things sitting here, and so something that I'm an absolute sucker for, and I even like literally today, like if I see something like this, like I am just so like crippled, like my will has been taken from me, and I have to have whatever I'm looking at. But anything that is like this see-through translucent kind of situation where I can see the insides of it, like like this was like huge back then. Like I don't know, was this more of a 90s thing or more of an 80s thing?
Definitely 90s.
Yeah, that's,
like,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
because I think even like the technology to make plastics like that didn't come around until like the late 80s, mid-late 80s.
So like I'm specifically thinking of like there's this like landline phone that was kind of like this, and like I don't know what it is.
Corded phone, right?
Yeah. Like I love one of my favorite things is seeing how things work, and like especially like the more mechanical looking it is. I mean, like seeing like circuitry and stuff like this is cool. I love that. That's great. But I love seeing like mechanical things, like things are like moving and shifting around on the inside, and like when you hang up the phone, this thing is going or whatever. On Twitter, I actually saw somebody posted they had a VCR that was like a translucent purple. It's like, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
That's awesome, man. Like, I've never even heard of a translucent VCR. Is that like, did they make a case for it or something? Or is that like, from the factory?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's from the factory. I mean, it's not surprising when I think about it, because like they had all of these like little CRTs that were like kind of more geared towards kids. There's like a SpongeBob one, and like all these like Disney ones and stuff like that.
There's like a Pokemon one even, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's like yellow and blue.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and the two little CRTs that I have over here, one is like a translucent blue and one is a translucent green. The green one is apparently these were made specifically for prisons, so that you couldn't put things in there, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't be sneaky. But there were green ones, which I have a green one, and they had just like totally just like clear ones, which those look pretty cool. But I think I like the green one better. But this little blue one I have over here, it's like a portable TV. I think it was made in like the early 2000s, like 2000, 2001, around the same time ish as the green one. But I was in like this antique store walking around, and I just saw this, and I was like, holy crap, I'm going to leave here with that. No, I'm not. I'm not buying that. And I literally just like walked around in this area for probably like 15 or 20 minutes while people were, and I posted an Instagram story about it, and people were messaging me like, just buy it. And then the weakness consumed me, and I left there with it.
Man. That's awesome.
So yeah, the translucent thing is it gets me. I love seeing the guts. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand that. What's like also like the iMacs, like the original iMacs, or the original Bondi Blue iMac.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they were like that, right? Even when they had the other colors that you could kind of see into the back. They actually had a Bondi Blue iMac, like way after the fact. When I was in college, and I bought it just because basically. And I ended up selling it for the same or more than I bought it for, because like by that point people were starting to kind of collect it. And I think I paid like something like $200 for it, which plus shipping, which was a really heavy thing. So it was probably like $250. But I ended up selling it for about $250 or $300 to somebody local, and they came and picked it up. So
nice.
I maybe made like $20 on it or something. I was able to use it that whole time.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see the inside of that too. But I'm like you. It's cool to see it, but it's missing something if there's not some sort of moving part inside of there.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more interesting when you have that translucent, and then like even that phone, right? Like the ringer, like you have the bell there,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of stuff. Like even just seeing it vibrate and all
Yeah.
that, just seeing the motion inside of it is, it's cool because like it demystifies it to a degree, but it
Mhm.
also gives it a new kind of cool, like just interest, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it, honestly.
Yeah, I feel you. Versus just a black phone sitting on the wall or whatever. Like you just don't really think
Yeah.
about all this stuff that's in there doing all these different things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a different kind. It seemingly becomes a different kind of device, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
While we're talking about Game Boys, there's this whole Game Boy printer thing that was a thing. Like, so I don't really know exactly how this works. It has something to do with heat. Like, it's not actually putting like ink on the paper.
It's a thermal printer. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's like a what do they call it? Like zebra printers.
Yeah.
Like for receipts and stuff.
Yeah.
Or for label printers.
Mm-hmm. So my paper is actually bad, so it doesn't work very well at all. But it still works. But that like the whole setup was just so ridiculous. You have this honking Game Boy, and then you have the Game Boy camera cartridge that you put in there, and you're taking your selfies before that was even a thing, and then printing it out via a freaking link cable onto the Game Boy printer.
I mean, the fact that they could do that with that level of technology was just pretty phenomenal.
Right.
I mean, the Game Boy came out in the 80s, man. I think some people don't realize that.
6 AA batteries. I always like to see how many batteries it took to power a thing.
Right.
It never fails that some of these toys that I'm looking at that I want to turn on, they take like 27 triple D batteries or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like
or the batteries that they do take, they're gone in like an hour and a half. I'm looking at you, Game Gear.
Right. Oh man, the Game Gear.
Yeah.
Those have not aged well from a hardware perspective. Like they are crapping out left and right. Like if you have one, you have to get it recapped. Like you have to. It will kill itself. They are self-destructing.
I believe that probably with the level of power going through them, to be honest. But even beyond that, like, man, I had a Game Gear and I liked it and enjoyed it. I had fun with it. By the way, have you ever played the Return of the Jedi game on the Game Gear?
No.
It's actually kind of fun. Like, okay, this could just be, rose-tinted glasses of a child thinking about, his past or whatever. But I had a lot of fun playing that game on Game Gear. I really, really enjoyed it. It seemed like a lot of fun at the time to me. And I'm curious to go back and try to play it and see if those memories are just like not accurate.
Yeah. I'll have to add that to the list here.
The one thing about the Game Gear that I always didn't, well, aside from the battery aspect, that I really did not like is just the D-pad and the buttons just don't feel good. The buttons are okay. The D-pad's pretty bad. It's just not a fun gaming experience because of that.
Yeah, I feel the same about the like the 3-button Genesis controller.
Oh yeah.
Like going back and trying to use one of those now. Like back in the day, I didn't know. And like now going back and trying to use one, it's just like yikes. This doesn't
well, I mean,
feel
even
that
the
great.
size of the 3-button Genesis controller is like not very aesthetically pleasing.
Right. The 6-button one feels great, but the
Yes.
3-button one, I don't know what the difference is between the two as far as the way they implemented that D-pad, but
who knows? Right. Yeah, you can say that. You can Ric Flair that one again.
right.
Ric Flair
yeah. So speaking of controllers, this is something that just jumped in my mind here. So did you ever have any IR wireless controllers back in the day?
I always wanted some, but no, I did not.
Okay. I had the only ones that I had were for the NES. And
those are the ones I wanted particularly.
It was so ridiculous. Like it to play. So IR, if you don't know, it's wireless, but like you're zapping. Just imagine you're zapping a laser at a thingy, at a receiver, and like if you're not like hitting the receiver, it's like you're playing freaking laser tag while you're trying to play a game or something like that.
Line of sight.
Yeah.
Connect.
So
Basically.
freaking. Like if you don't have this thing perfectly lined up with the receiver while you're playing, it's gonna screw up. If your dog runs in front of the TV, it's gonna screw up. If your mom's vacuuming and she goes in front of you, it's obviously going to totally screw up. So I mean, it was just this whole freaking thing, and like the Game Boy Color had that as like an alternative to the link cable. So you could, if you had two consoles lined up just right, you could transfer stuff. I don't think you could actually, huh?
Is that built in?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think you could actually like play games that way. I think it was just for transferring like certain like Pokemon. I think you could do it with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could use it as, but I feel like that would be tragic to try to play a game like that.
Right. Yeah. And that's wild. Oh, dude, I hate IR devices. I really do.
Bro, my first car was a 1993 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it had this IR wireless remote, which was a joke. Like, basically, you had to actually touch the window and aim it at the thing in the ceiling, at the receiver in the ceiling to unlock the car. It was like this
for the locks. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Like this serves no purpose whatsoever. The only thing this gives me is I don't have to shove a key in the door and turn it. Like I'm basically getting just as close to the car to unlock it or whatever. So
probably closer.
This reminds me of a nightmare scenario. So I don't remember what year this was. This was probably like maybe 96 or 97 or something. So that was actually my parents' car before they gave it to me. And we went to St. Louis one summer, and we went to Six Flags in this Jeep, and spent the whole day there or whatever. And when we went to leave, suddenly the parking lot was just miles and miles and miles of cars, and we realized we had no idea where the heck we parked. Because when we got there, it was pretty clear where we had parked, but freaking when we left, that was not the case. It was just a sea of cars. And with this little remote, there is no like, do I hear the car beeping somewhere in the parking lot? No. Let's walk up and down every single aisle and see if we can find this vehicle. So, yeah.
That's terrible, dude.
It was horrible. It literally took over an hour to find it. Like it was a thing.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I can imagine. No, that's why I feel so bad, is because I can very vividly imagine going through that scenario. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely a nightmare. But actually, funny story, that remote actually fell apart. Like in the later years of me having that car, it just totally disintegrated. The remote did. And so
I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right. Just let me die. So I had this, it was like a reprogrammable, a learning like TV remote. It was like really small. It was like one that my dad gave me. It was like, I don't know, maybe like 2 inches by 1 inch, and it had like a clock on it. It was actually a pretty cool looking little remote. But I actually programmed the signal for the car into that remote. For a while, I was using a freaking TV remote to unlock and lock my car.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh man,
great.
I can just imagine.
Such a great use of technology.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's good stuff.
But yeah, that remote, it was just like, it was in shambles by the time it gave up the ghost. It was just like glued together, and like the buttons were like barely working, and so got it working long enough to suck the spirit out of it and call it a day. Put it to rest.
It literally gave up the ghost.
Right.
Oh man. Well, so you had that Game Boy printer. That reminded me of another one that I wanted to talk about, and this probably would blow some people's minds these days. There used to be calculators that had printers attached to them, like not just attached; it was part of the calculator. And it was those kinds of sheets too, like the kind of, most of them were like the small, narrow kind of, like big old drum of paper you put in there and feed it through.
Yeah.
And then basically like everything that you would do would print out on it. And I mean, these things were loud too. It was like, it wasn't some like,
yeah, bro. Like my grandfather worked at a bank, and so he was big into the, all that stuff, and he had like a giant, like it was so big. It was so big. I can't even I don't even have anything to it was probably like 2 of these, to be honest.
Oh my goodness.
Like it was huge.
Wow.
And it was just a freaking calculator that printed on a piece of paper.
They actually got a lot smaller than that over time, though, at least.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Dude. Yeah.
And so it's like, just, I know why you would want that, but I can't imagine wanting that all the time or frequently. So to me, it just seems like banks, that's a different story, right? If your work is something and everything you're doing, you need to have a record in case you forget or you didn't write it down. And that makes total sense to me. But like they have these things for personal reasons. And I understand maybe you're doing taxes or something and there's a lot of calculations you have to do and you want to remember all that. Sure. Okay. You do that once a year. Who needs a calculator every time I sit down to do some calculations that I want basically, blow by blow of everything that I put into this calculator and everything that comes out. It's like, I don't know. And so for me, it is, and luckily a lot of them, especially the later ones, had it where you could, it was toggleable. So like you could turn off the print functionality. You could just use it as a calculator that didn't print. Or, if you couldn't, you just take out the roll of paper and it would try to print and just wouldn't do anything.
Right.
But it's like, it just, maybe just because the conception of a calculator for so long was that it had the print paper trail of what it was doing, that people just assumed that it needed to or should. But eventually, obviously, they started making calculators without printers, and then they started making very advanced calculators without printers, and then they started making it such advanced calculators that, I mean, they were computers, and basically you could just look at whatever it always had forever, basically.
Right.
I'm thinking particularly like the scientific calculators and the graphing calculators and things like that. Graphing calculators is a completely different thing to talk about.
That's a whole thing. I played so many games on those freaking things.
Yeah, dude. Oh man.
I remember when I first got mine, my parents weren't thrilled about buying it because of how much those cost back in the day. I mean, they're still pretty expensive. But I got it was like some Zelda clone that I had installed on it. It took up all the memory on this thing, but it was like I'm freaking playing The Legend of Zelda on my calculator, man.
Like in retrospect, okay, so I'm going to put on my mathematician's hat. So I'm speaking as someone who literally has a degree in mathematics. And looking back on that, why in the heck did we ever have graphing calculators? Like even if you were taking calculus in high school, even in college, why did you ever have, need, or want a graphing calculator? I can't answer this question. I literally can't answer this question. Can you?
No.
There's
Absolutely
literally no reason for you to have a graphing calculator. Like, I'm putting aside you can do it all on a phone these days. Of course, whatever. Sure. But even forget a phone. You don't need a phone. You need no implement. You don't even need a scientific calculator. You don't even need a basic calculator to do calculus. Like, why? What functions? Truly, seriously, anybody out there, if you're hearing this, save me from this insanity whenever I try to think about this. Because this is not the first time I've tried to think about this. I don't remember what I had one. I had a TI-89 and have no idea what I used it for, other than playing Galaxian. Like, literally. That's all I remember with my TI-89 is that I play Galaxian all the time on it. But I'm trying to think about all the different things you do in calculus that you would have at the high school level. So even like, most all of differential calculus and most of integral calculus, like, single variable integral and differential calculus. What do you need it for? I even think about calculus 3 stuff, multivariable calculus. What do you need it for? I think about differential equations. What do you need it for? And then beyond differential equations, there's literally no reason for it because the calculators can't do anything to help you. It's like, at least I guess in those others, it can graph things if you want to know what it looks like, but it's like, it's not that hard to just plot it out. I don't understand. Okay, I'm going nuts. I need to stop talking about it.
I got you. Speaking of calculators, so at some point they got really small and you could wear them literally on your wrist. I was so thrilled about this little calculator. So if you're listening to this, I'm holding up a Casio calculator watch here, which for some reason, this is not a Casio band. This isn't the band that was originally on it. I thought it was more comfortable, so I put this on there. And it says, alarm, aviator, style. I forgot that it says style. It's like, cool. You have to like tell me that this is stylish or something. And chrono. Anyway, I thought I was hot stuff with this on. I was so
Dude,
pleased.
I'm
about
jealous.
That.
Like, I wanted one of those so badly. Like, I don't even know why.
I got that for Christmas one year. I wanted it so bad, and this was like, you know, my fancy gift that year or whatever.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
I had that, and I had oh, this was so obnoxious. So I had this watch that you'd push. It had a big button on it, and you'd push the button, and it would make this loud dong sound, and it would have some lady telling you the time. And my grandmother got this for me off of, it was a QVC special.
Oh man.
And I wore the crap out of this watch. And I was so proud of it. But it never failed that some little turd that I was sitting next to in class would just reach over and push my button. And then, it announces to the whole class, "Dong!" whatever time it is. And it was just, And the alarm on this thing was a rooster. And it was so loud. Like this freaking must have had a phenomenal speaker in it or something. It was just, it was so loud and it was so obnoxious.
Oh man. Brought to you by JBL.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, that's funny. I've never heard of such a thing. It's like,
yeah, it was ridiculous.
That's one of those things you go and you look on eBay and they go for like $300 now.
You know what? I need to have eBay just up in a tab while we do this podcast because this is always.
That's right.
Let's see.
Especially when we're talking about retro tech.
Wristwatch. Oh, it suggested something to me. Let's see what happens here.
Oh man, what do we got?
Let's see if I can find it. I doubt it. This one was like, it was really cheapo looking.
Okay, yeah. Oh, hey man, but you could get one now and just be like super cyberpunk with it, like paint it like purple and stuff.
Right. The thing that was so ridiculous about it is like I can't express to you how big the button was on the front of this thing. Like you could accidentally hit it like all the time, and I did pretty frequently. Like a lot of these I'm seeing are actually like nicer looking ones, and they have like a button on the side that you press. That makes sense.
Oh, okay, sure.
But oh wait, I found it.
Oh man. So
maybe the button isn't as big as I'm remembering, but it's like on the side. It's like in the corner of it. I'm going to send this to you.
All right. Yeah.
In the Discords here. Just the way that button over there is on the side, like it was just so easy to press.
That's wild. You know what this looks like to me? This doesn't look like an actual watch. It looks like a stopwatch, to be honest. Or like one of those. I guess just a stopwatch. I was trying to think about like some other kind of like time device that's reminding me of, but I can't think of anything, I guess, besides a stopwatch at the moment. But yeah, that's man, that's talking. The button just says talking. That's funny. Yeah, this is not a good idea in a school with kids.
Yeah,
like,
no
literally,
way. Just absolutely not.
As soon as anybody finds out about it, it's like you're done for. It's over.
Yeah, I had to stop wearing it. And I also had a Sonic one that I got. It had some Sonic. It was like a little Tiger handheld LCD game. But it was Sonic 1. I got it from the Sega Visions magazine. It was like one of those mail-in things.
Yeah.
It was. I really wish I knew where it was, but it was kind of obnoxious looking because it was like square, like this calculator watch, but it had like this rubber plastic whatever Sonic like off to the side here. So it was just like way bigger than it needed to be, but they had to put, the hedgehog himself hanging off the side of the watch. Not comfortable at all to wear, but
one of those things where like you have to put it on after you put your shirt on because it's like it's gonna catch on everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
But Tiger handhelds is like a whole other thing.
Honestly, we probably should do just a podcast about Tiger handhelds because I can't even tell you how many of those that I had, and I'm sure I've gotten rid of all of them. I had an unreasonable amount of those things, like literally unreasonable amount.
It actually blows my mind how much those are worth now, all things considering.
Dude,
like some of them go for a pretty penny.
Even if they were worth like $20 each, I probably would have $500 worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like, that's how many. It's bad.
It's not unheard of. Whenever I look one up, I just I wonder how much that is. It's at least $30, at least.
Oh my goodness, dude! Oh my goodness. I like. Honestly, if I could find them, you can have them. Sell them. They're that bad,
bro.
They're that bad.
Did you see that post that I did a little while ago? The Crash Bandicoot one with some of those. I had a Crash Bandicoot. It was like a more advanced Tiger handheld. It was like, when Tiger handhelds were like on their way out, like it actually had like an LCD, a little bit of a nicer LCD screen on it.
Okay. No, I don't think I saw that for some reason.
But there was.
How I didn't?
Yeah, there was.
I don't remember.
There was a Crash Bandicoot game. There's a Resident Evil 2 one. I think I sent you that one.
Yeah, you did send me that one.
But those are all just hundreds of dollars now. But they had this
I did not need to know that existed.
Right, this little connector on the top where you could connect two of them together and play like co-op or competitive games or whatever.
Oh, good grief. That's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Like the last thing that I need is to know about more stuff that I need to collect, especially expensive, extremely rare stuff.
Right. They were called 99X games for whatever reason.
Because of course they were.
Because of course.
Resident Evil. Oh my goodness. Why does this exist? Tell me why this exists. Oh,
WCW and NWO Thunder 99X.
Oh man.
But yeah, like freaking.
So this is a complete tangent. We need to get back on topic of the podcast at hand, because I was about to ask you a question that was going to take us in a way different direction. Like I've got a few more things on this list if you want to work through some of them, or I don't want to get too long here because the past couple episodes have gotten
out of control. OOC.
Yeah, right. One of the things though that I did want to talk about, because I'd mentioned this and you're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, you know what this is. This is like old. Calling this technology may seem weird, but to me, it's like so much technological stuff has replaced this that it's kind of in the lineage of the technology. So I think it's interesting to mention it. Yeah. And it's especially interesting because I guarantee you anybody who was born after 2000 has almost zero chance of knowing what this is. And I called it by what it's a colloquial name for. It's called a knuckle buster. I think you know what this is. A knuckle buster is a mechanical device that imprints something across multiple copies of paper. Okay. Particularly with carbon copy stuff. And this was used particularly for processing credit cards at a store before we had things like Magstripe, or Magstripe was, pervasive where you could just, swipe a card. So what this was is like the credit card ones was like a I don't know, probably about this big. So if somebody was paying, think about the 80s. If you're paying in the 80s, you were likely paying with cash. If you weren't paying with cash, you were probably paying with check. That's it. Well, until credit cards came around. And then people would have an account, right? And you have an account number. That's before the cards. Then they started having cards. And so then they had a repeatable process for tracking what account was being used with the card, whether it's a store card, which is not as common these days as it used to be, or as a general credit card like Visa, MasterCard, which is what most people do use these days. So they would have carbon copy paper, which is another technology we probably could talk about. Just like you have like 3 sheets where there's the sheet you write on, there's the carbon layer, and then there's the copy layer where you write on it, and then basically the imprint of the pencil or the pen presses down on the carbon layer, so you get the pen on the top layer, and the carbon presses down onto the bottom layer, and then it gets a copy of what you're writing in the same style of you writing. It's exactly the same thing. Well, that's what a knuckle buster does. You have the forms where you're processing the sale, and then you put the actual credit card on it, and it has this little thing in a track, and it's a real heavy little piece that like it goes back and forth across it. And that's why it's called a knuckle buster, because if you're holding your hand on one side and you do like this, you're going to bust your knuckle when it comes back. And it's really heavy and it hurts.
So yeah, if you've just put in any 80s movie into a VCR, and you will probably see one of these things at least once.
Yeah, especially like some 80s Christmas movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was actually thinking.
Yeah. And so like, and these things, a lot of stores still have them because they still have to process credit card transactions, even if, their connection, their phone connect. A lot of them are connected over the internet. Some are connected over phone now, the credit card processing terminals. Or power goes down or whatever, and they still want to make sales. They pull them out and they process sales.
That's wild.
Just,
man. Hidden memory unlocked. I totally forgot about those things.
They were so common, right?
Like you started describing that, I just had all these flashbacks.
yeah. And it's really funny that like now, like especially if you think now beyond even credit cards to things like wireless payment with like Apple Pay or Google Wallet, or is it still called Google Wallet? I don't know. I don't really use those things personally, but technologies like that. Payment technology has really evolved a lot over the past like 40 years. It's like it's really, really dramatically different now than it used to be. Like I remember back in the day where people were like literally afraid, like I'm not going to do that, afraid of buying things on the internet. And it's like if you wanted to buy something that you saw on the internet, well, they have a phone number and you call them and you tell them your credit card number over the phone.
Bro.
Yeah. That was not that long ago.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
Kind of funny.
That's wild.
Yeah. Well, then mail order, people really don't remember that, where like you have a card and then you fill it out and then you just send it in. These are the things I want. And
that was that Sonic watch that I was talking about. Like that's what that was. It was like a mail order thing. I think we probably sent them like a check maybe or something like that. And then, you got the thing back in the mail eventually, like, 3 months later.
That's the thing is like, people are so spoiled on the Amazon Prime thing. Like, you get it the same day, the next day, or 2 days later. Imagine waiting 6 weeks to get the thing that you ordered. That was not an uncommon occurrence. I remember even like in the early 2000s ordering stuff from Musician's Friend and it taking like 2 weeks to get. To me. And I felt even that was kind of fast. So 2 weeks, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember ordering something like, oh yeah, 2 weeks from now. That's not bad. That's not too bad.
Yeah. And so it's like now it's like 2 weeks, and you're like, what the heck's going on? Like you canceled the order and already placed it somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
that's man. It's amazing to see the kind of progress we've made.
So wild. I have something else sitting here, a big thing.
All right, hit me with it. I mean, no, if it's a big thing, don't hit me with it.
This one would be pretty heavy if I hit it with you. So this is a Robocop laser disc. So if you've never heard of a laser disc before, laser disc was basically like DVDs in the 80s. this
Yeah.
giant. Hey, you see yourself right there.
Hey, look at that.
There you are.
Ah.
DVDs in the 80s, and wow, this is kind of sticky. What the heck? But when did they stop making these? I mean, it had to have been like mid 90s ish, because like Toy Story actually came out on a laser disc.
Yeah, because like the quote unquote final release of the original Star Wars trilogy, when they did that, where they was like the remastered, and not the one where they had the extra scenes, but the last one where it was like the original format without the extra scenes, and it had like the interviews with George Lucas at the beginning of each one. That came out on Laserdisc, because I remember seeing that in the store. But that was about the last time that I remember seeing any new Laserdiscs.
Yeah. So it's just, I feel like a lot of people like had in the 90s had experiences with Laserdiscs, and they didn't really realize it, because a lot of like educational stuff in schools was like actually on Laserdisc for some reason. I don't really know why exactly that would be the case.
There's a long reason for that, and it's the same reason why schools adopt bad technology. It's the same reason schools always adopt bad technologies, is because the incentives chain of how they do it. So the companies that make these new technologies, they try to do this sort of thing where they get into like entrenched funding systems, whether that be schools, whether it be prisons, like with the TVs or stuff like that, where they're like, okay, we know that we can leverage this pot of money that's always going to exist there to try to further research. So let's do that so that we can offload some of the risk of furthering this research to that. They do that, and then they, offer the product to those organizations at a discount originally. And it just turns out, well, since they didn't do that in the market, they don't compete very well. And then whenever their competitor comes in and sees what they did and does something better in the market, then, whatever. But that's why. And so, you see that with Laserdisc. You saw that. I mean, you saw that with like Betamax VHS even, right? So, I mean, that's probably always going to be that way as long as there's like all these weird things that bump with the economy, like non-market funding.
But like I remember teachers bringing in like the movie cart. And then they had like the stack of laser discs or whatever that came in with it.
Well, like even if you didn't use anything laser, this is the way it was in my schools. So this thing was called, I don't know why it was called. It's called 21st Century Classroom, and all the 21st Century Classroom was a TV cart that had a VCR on it. It had, I think it even had a computer on it or something. But there was a big TV up top, and then there was a laser disc player.
Yeah.
Never once in any of my classes did we ever use the Laserdisc player. It was always brought in only ever to watch a movie, and it wasn't educational stuff. It was just to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Like literally. And so like if you didn't know that was a Laserdisc player, then like you're like, what's that big, extra large cassette player right there? That's kind of what it looked like. Because it was it's like a wider cassette looking thing, but like what it is, it would eject and come out, and you could put the Laserdisc on it, and then it would go back in.
One of my favorite bits in the second Back to the Future is when Marty and Doc and Jennifer land in 2015. They land in like this back alley, and there are just piles and stacks of laser discs as if they are all getting thrown away.
I don't think I've ever noticed that.
Bro, yeah, you need to watch it. It's so good. It's so good.
Like they would even make it to 2015.
Right. But like there are like so many. Yeah. But it's like, it's just something like just totally in the background. Like they don't mention it or anything like that. It's just kind of there. But it's just like a really cool little detail. Yeah.
I have definitely got to go watch that now.
Yeah. But yeah, so I have a handful of laser discs that came from my parents' store that are just cool movies that I like. I don't actually have a Laserdisc player. I think it'd be cool to get one at some point.
Yeah.
But there were so many Laserdiscs left over from that store that are still in our possession. So if anybody out there collects Laserdiscs and wants to get a fantastic deal on some, do let me know, because there are literally hundreds.
Well, you and I might need to talk, because there may be some things that I would.
Yeah, maybe. It's one of those things where I really need to go through them and see what the heck is in there, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have picked up a few over time. One of my favorite ones is the Jurassic Park one. So if you collect like vinyl records, like, like one of the coolest things about vinyl records is having this whole thing where you can like open it up and like look at all these different things and like all the artwork and whatever. And a lot of laser discs are pretty basic, like this Robocop one where it's literally just like the VHS cover art, like that they didn't even like redo. Like they just have like, have the disc hanging off the side here. Yeah. But some of the laser discs are really big, and they have lots of like different inserts and this freaking microphone, lots of different inserts and things that you can look through and whatever. So I really enjoy that kind of aspect of things. But the Jurassic Park one is like that. It's like this big open up and look at all the different stuff on the inside and whatever. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Speaking of vinyl, well, this isn't the time to talk about that, but I have a few more additions to my collection that finally showed up.
Oh, nice.
I could talk about it. This is off topic, but so I ordered these. Mid 2020. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like summer 2020, and I ended up getting them at the end of. Really, I got it at the end of last year, sometime in December. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to show up in like summer last year, and then it got delayed like 2-3 times because vinyl shortage, all that kind of stuff. But
right, yeah.
So it was like a limited edition release of. There was they did a limited edition that's like a different color vinyl, and then they had the regular that was like black vinyl, and I got the limited editions of the original Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 soundtracks.
That's awesome,
dude. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So now I've got RE1, RE2, Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3 on vinyl. So I think I'm probably good on video game soundtracks for like my collection.
Yeah.
And I've got other cool stuff too. I've got Metallica Kill 'Em All on vinyl. I've got
I forgot you had that.
Yeah. I've got one of my favorite albums ever. This band called Persephone. They're from Andorra. So they have an album called Spiritual Migration, which is one of my, musically, lyrically is one of my favorite albums ever. So I've got that on vinyl, and I've got the Twin Peaks soundtrack on vinyl. What else? I think that's about it. There may be one or two more things, but so I'm only collecting things that are like ultra special to me on vinyl, or that the art's like super cool. Like that would definitely be one of those things too. Like you're saying. Yeah. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah, I'm the same way with vinyl. I just can't have another thing in my life that I'm just constantly buying.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I have the Wizard Throne album that came out, their first album.
Oh, that's cool.
That just came out. What is it? Hypercube Necro Dimensions.
It's such a great name.
It really is. Have you listened to that album?
I don't think so, no.
It's on Spotify. I highly recommend you giving it a listen. It's good.
Noted.
Yeah,
Noted.
You'd like it.
Yeah, a couple of my favorite vinyls are, and really most of the ones that I buy are just video game ones, like the Shovel Knight soundtrack.
Oh, sure.
The Unearthworm Jim collection, like that has music from the first and second games on it.
I know you just said Earthworm Jim, but the way you said it sounded like Unearthworm Jim. So I'm thinking like Earthworm Jim music in the style of the band Unearth.
That'd be interesting.
That would be. I'd buy that for
$1. What else? I have a Danimal Cannon album on vinyl.
Oh, yeah. Roots or a different one?
The Lunaria.
Oh yeah.
Album. What else? Oh, the Sonic Mania album.
Okay, yeah.
That's all that's coming to me right now. I have freaking what is the latest Metallica album?
Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
Yes. I got that. There was a store in the mall here in town when the store was closing. They were just like giving everything away basically. So I got that for $4. Like it was, totally brand new or whatever. It came with like a digital version too. So I was like, yes, I will have that. I got that, and I got a Mannheim Steamroller album there too.
Nice.
So
that's a good pickup. I like Mannheim Steamroller.
yeah.
And speaking of that, Metallica. This is way off base, but speaking of that Metallica album, dude, Spit Out the Bone's such a good song,
Bro, that's an awesome song. I still stand by this. I feel like that's the best song that they've written in like 2 decades.
Easily, yes, like easily. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Like, so 2 decades. When did that come out? 2018.
Is that right? Yeah.
So that means you think that it's better than everything on Load and Reload too.
When did those come out?
Probably accurate, in the 90s.
I thought those were like mid 90s ish.
Yeah, so Reload would have been 97 or 98. Actually, I could look that up. So it came out 97, November of 97 is Reload. And then Load came out in 96, June. So 2018. So yeah, that would have been 20. Certainly, yeah, no doubt of that, right? Because you're talking about Saint Anger, Death Magnetic. Is there any other albums in that time?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, dude, that whole album's better than anything that was on those 2 albums.
Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, and arguably Spit Out the Bone's better than most, if not all, of Load and Reload too. I wouldn't dismiss that argument offhand. I would have to think about it personally.
Yeah.
There's definitely songs on Reload and Load for that matter that are not as good as Spit Out the Bone. There's no question in my mind on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting, like all the heavy hitters on those 2 albums, and you just don't really think about the other ones that are on them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the ones that are good are like so good that you just don't even think about all the other stuff on those albums.
Right. I mean, like, well, this is not a Metallica podcast, but like Attitude on Reload, I think it's an alright song. Is nowhere near as good as Spit Out the Bone. And there's some cool riffs on the songs, but some songs are like, oh yeah, they had a cool riff, and then they just wrote a song around a cool riff, and it's like, it's not a good song.
Yep.
Anyway.
Suddenly Metallica podcast.
I'm trying to think. Because my brain's already here, so I've got to say this. I'm trying to compare Spit Out the Bone to anything from the 80s in Metallica. Well, forget about Black Album. Spit Out the Bone's better than some songs on the Black Album without question in my mind. But is it better than is it better than anything from the 80s? I don't know if yes is the answer to that.
I don't know.
I really don't know.
I would have to do some deep investigation.
Right.
Really examine myself and how I feel about things.
It's definitely not better than anything on Kill 'Em All, in my opinion. Anyway, this is such a specific conversation we're having right now.
Yes.
I'm interested in the answer to this question, though. That's why I keep thinking about it. So I need to pause that. So
Zorain, is there anything else that you wanna bring up here, retro tech wise?
I mean, yes is the answer, but I don't think
it sounds like we need a part 3, to be honest.
I think we need a part 3. Yeah, I think that's the right way to go about it.
We can just keep going here.
Seems good. Maybe this will just be like an ongoing series.
Yeah.
In HyperPixel land.
Right. We need to flesh that out. What does that look like in the Pixelverse?
Yeah, the Pixelverse.
Yeah.
I was actually telling Ashlyn last night about the Pixelverse.
Nice. That's awesome.
And she was like, Ashlyn's in the Pixelverse, right? I'm like, of course Ashlyn's in the Pixelverse. We'll have to get there one of these days.
Yeah. So, Zorain, if let's just say for a moment that somebody out there in cyberspace land was just like mega interested, like they heard your voice, and they were like, man, I want to allow this voice to enter my ear holes repeatedly, and I want to see and hear everything that this bro is doing. Like, how would they do that? What would they do, Zorain? Before
I answer that question, okay. I would come back at them with my own question. What's wrong with you? It's okay, but what's wrong with you? Maybe it's the same thing that's wrong with me. And if that's the case, awesome. And you can see and hear all of the things that I do. at Xeraen.net, Xeraen.net.
Yes.
That'll give you links to all my things. At some point, I guess I should mention this, at some point, that's going to become an actual website. But my links will be on the website too, so no big deal. If you're seeing this in the future and you're listening to, well, no matter when you're seeing this, you're hearing past Xeraen. But if you're hearing far past Xeraen, say this to you, Xeraen.net is possibly a website now, and if it is, somewhere on that website are links to all of my social medias, etc. And but I will probably have posts there about all the stuff I'm doing. So check it out, Xeraen.net. Excellent. What about you, Mr. Michael K?
So funny you asked, Xeraen. So likewise, if you go to michaelk.net/links, you will see all the things that I do, as well as all the things that Xeraen does behind the scenes. So that's where all my stuff is. And if you're listening to this in auditory format, this podcast in auditory format, if you would also like to listen while you watch us move our mouth holes, you can go to HyperPixelPodcast.net. And that'll take you to a little place where you can get to our YouTube channel and all kinds of stuff to watch us do what we're doing right now, what you're listening to us do. So yeah. Xeraen,
good time.
It has been a good. I'm looking forward to part 3.
Right.
For sure. So
probably part 4 and 5.
Yes, this may continue on forever. Anyway, cyberspace, it has been excellent. It has been absolutely fantastic. We appreciate the heck out of you. Thank you for being here, and we will catch you next time out there in cyberspace land.
Peace.
Deuces.